See, it's great.
Thank you. It's a photograph from someone at PepsiCo, actually, who's a photographer, and we're all looking for the latest Zoom images,
Yeah,
spice things up. So this
that's
one's
great.
on today.
And good to see you. So I'll leave it to you too, and hopefully we'll get the tech stuff worked out while you guys chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
I'm going to start. Again, thank you, SB, for taking the time today. I'm super excited about today's topic. But since we weren't able to run the sizzle reel, I'm just going to start with a little background on Adsmovil. We're a global digital media company with the largest reach of US Hispanics. We are dedicated to reaching and engaging with US Hispanic consumers by focusing in on their cultural diversity, resulting in authentic messaging where our users feel represented. Today's topic, I'm super excited. We'll be addressing something that I'm super passionate about, the future of Hispanic advertising. Where are we today, and what does that future hold? I'm even more excited about the specific topic SB and I will be discussing. The new mainstream is Hispanic. I mean, it seems everywhere we look, we are surrounded by beautiful Hispanic influences, from Latin flavors infused in foods to music and entertainment, arts and culture. We're seeing diversity in Broadway. I think of Hamilton and In the Heights, which focuses on a specific segment of the Hispanic population. I think of reggaeton with Bad Bunny, Maluma, Cardi B, and they're being featured as brand ambassadors, faces of huge brands. J Lo and Shakira killing it at the Super Bowl in 2020.
Sure did.
Yeah. Also, they're okay sharing something.
I think it's your sizzle reel.
Oh, okay. Maybe we could get this started.
One thing is reaching, and a whole other thing is connecting. Now, if you want to have a marked effect on Hispanics, we guarantee massive impact. 40 million of it, to be precise. We're not in the business of probability, but certainty. Sure, many will claim they can put your brand in front of Hispanics. We'll put your brand inside their minds and hearts. True, not only do we have the largest scale, but we've been at it longer than anybody else in the US, building a proprietary data hub across Latin America's top 7 markets. So we can go way beyond census data into frequency, time spent, and content consumption patterns, and can arm your brand with real-time insights on Hispanics' interests. In fact, we could almost pinpoint each Hispanic individual with near surgical precision across every possible touchpoint, from mobile and smart TVs to tablets and desktops. That goes to all things Hispanic, from blended to Hispanophiles to subcultures and their passion points. Now, add our direct relationship with over 1,200 Hispanic premium publishers and top-notch influencers. Elevate it to the power of Adsmovil Studio, delivering unmatched creative services and custom content production. Then divide it by the Hispanic market's most robust track record, and you get the one digital advertising company in the US completely fluent in Hispanic. Say hola to Adsmovil. Precisely Hispanic.
It's a great sizzle.
Awesome. It makes you want to dance. Well, there's no denying that the new mainstream is indeed Hispanic, and it feels like advertisers are definitely beginning to see that, but they aren't quite there yet. Checking off a box during Hispanic Heritage Month doesn't cut it. There simply needs to be consistency for growth. And put simply, if you aren't advertising to Hispanics, you're missing out on a huge, huge growth potential. SB, I'd love to hear about how this new mainstream is impacting Pepsi's marketing efforts.
Yeah, happy to. So I'll quote Marc Pritchard. You and I were talking last week from P&G, who says, if you're not doing multicultural marketing, you're not doing marketing, period. So keep that in mind as we kind of talk through, the why this is so important to do. And so I'm just going to talk economics for a few minutes. I am not an economist. I studied engineering undergrad, and I am a marketing and sales lead. But I will tell you what I have learned, because learning about the economy is really important, pushing you into your uncomfortable zones. So here we go. So we know for sure quantitatively that if you measure the US Hispanic GDP, which is a measure of economy, it's about $2.6 trillion. If US Hispanics were their own country, they would be the 8th largest country globally. So just think about that, right? It's such a powerful group that they would be the 8th largest country in the world. Now, they also have a very fast growth rate. So that's the other big thing, growing faster than China's economy, faster than India's economy. And this is like new information for folks who may not be leaning into or thinking about the consumer from this perspective, but they've got a lot to contribute. And so a lot of that is being powered by the fact that Hispanics are getting more personal growth, because many of them now are getting more educational achievement and attainment. And then that also, coupled with more labor force participation, means more money, more opportunity to spend. The other piece of it is that on average, Hispanics are younger, God bless, and we live longer, God bless again. So loyalty today can last a lifetime. And we know that this cohort is very loyal, show up for them, and they're loyal. So even more reason for you to lean in today so that you're capturing future growth. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, you mentioned Hispanics being younger. They're in their prime buying, have that buying power. If you're not marketing to them, you're not doing. I mean, it shouldn't be multicultural marketing. It's marketing.
Yeah.
And then even to go deeper than that, it's Hispanics, and then it's by Hispanic. There's such a fragmented part of the U.S. Hispanics. Then you got to look at country of origin. Then within the country of origin, you have subgroups. You have a Hispanic who's more urban, a Hispanic who is more of a rocker, and just different tribes.
Yeah.
So it just goes so much deeper, and it's so important, especially in today's climate and everything that's going on, to understand and the differences, the nuances, and then be real. Not just slap in a brown face on an ad. Really touching the hearts.
Of course.
So, how do you see your competitors missing this opportunity?
I would say that the thing that other companies are missing is leaning into the community, because we can do grand marketing and very big flashy creative, but at the end of the day, it's all in the community, and that's really where the most help is needed, where the consumer feels most comfortable, but also probably most vulnerable. And if you're not showing up in the community, then you're missing the boat. And our company, which I feel very, very fortunate to be a part of, has made commitments to Black and Hispanic consumers to say, hey, we believe in racial equality, and we're going to show up and be there to help you. So, for example, the restaurant initiative that we launched with Black consumers, we launched a big driving equity in the game of soccer in the United States and cities which were largely Hispanic. But you have to be there, because if you're not there, you're likely going to miss them, despite all the big above the line traditional things. And that's probably the most important thing.
Absolutely. Just connecting with the audience on a real level, down to the local level. I remember watching the reel, or just the I think it was coverage from, I don't know if it was Univision. I think it was Angie Martinez, and she was showing how many people turned out to, I think it was the truck Manzanita Sol launch. And you guys had all the food trucks, and, you awarded money to help these food trucks, especially during a time like last year. And that just touched my heart. You can see the owners, the small business owners, were really, really excited and happy that, Pepsi is lending that helping hand and really touching locally, not just globally, not just checking off a box during Hispanic Heritage. And that's super important. Now, as far as how has marketing to the US Hispanic affected your ROI just within the past year?
Yeah. I mean, we for sure are seeing faster growth with the Hispanic business that we measure through syndicated. So we primarily use IRI. So we measure how fast we're growing, faster than the general market, because this population is growing faster than the general market. So that's important. We look at brand equity scores, and are we moving in the right direction when it comes to the brand perspective? And for the brands where we're really leaning into a core strategy and consumer base that shows up then in what we do for media all the way through retail, we are seeing positive performance. And it's no surprise, because it's like any other brand target you might have. When you invest in them and customize to reach them, assuming your messaging is strong, you're going to get them, and it's going to pay out. And the ANA, also the Association of Inclusion and Multicultural Marketing, also has leveraged this methodology called SIM, which in essence measures performance of advertising with the core communities that you're targeting. And for a fact, it drives purchase interest. There's no question. So I think the business case is much better quantified within the last several years, but it's there. So it's really at the point where, hey, the facts are there from the business side. Now people just need to act. And they need to act now. They need to act from whatever seat they sit in. So even if you don't sit in a Hispanic marketing group, you're a marketer, you need to know what that consumer is about and how you are going to help tap into their subconscious cues to then start building your brand. Like that's just the job that we have. So any seat anyone sits in, sales, marketing, innovation. I have R&D people who are like, SB, how can we help you build a pipeline of ideas for the Hispanic consumer? Wasn't in their day job remittance, but when they saw the opportunity, they're like, oh my God, how do I do that? I want to help you do that. I am going to put resource behind it to do it. So the business case is there, folks. It's really a time to act at this point.
So what's the one piece of advice you would give, just someone trying to reach this market?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, we're asked as marketers, right, to transform, to be forward thinking, creative, innovative, and fundamentally drive results. Mm-hmm. So if I told you that Hispanics marketing in your plans will drive results that are faster, I think you'll say, okay, I'm in. If I told you they're more loyal to the brands who connect with them accurately, authentically, and if you do it in an inspirational way, you'll build your brand, I think you'll say, okay. And if we talk about brands that are the new mainstream, right? These brands that have high authenticity that maybe came from Hispanic, Asian, Black, origin or cues, like for Hispanics, Modelo, Jarritos, Topo Chico, you would say, oh yeah, no, I see them everywhere now. They're not just Hispanic brands. You'd be like, okay, I understand. And then like in the world of entertainment, I mean, you hit it before, J-Lo, Shakira, biggest stage ever, but The Weeknd joined Maluma on his Hawaii song. Right. Carrie Underwood joined David Bisbal on a Hispanic love song. The woman was singing in Spanish, for God's sakes. Like, who would have known? But I mean, so we're influencing everything. So again, it goes back to, you need to act now. You need to act now. It's in front of you. You see Hispanic being infused across the board in the food you're eating, I bet, in the music you're listening to, I bet, and in what you're watching on television. It's everywhere. So embrace it. Embrace it. Don't exclude it. Embrace it.
Tons of brands. We've been getting requests from brands that we've never had an opportunity with before.
It's amazing.
It's amazing how everyone's coming to the forefront and really seeing that cultural relevance is very important. Speaking to someone, to a consumer, not only to their minds, but to their hearts is where you get them and get that loyalty.
Sure do.
Brands are increasing their investment levels against multicultural audiences. And they're also preaching diversity and inclusion and hiring, more it's not just about, the creative development, but also the people that are working at the agency level and at the brand level and at the sales level to really, you really have to live and know and breathe that part to really understand how to market to them. What is Pepsi? Let's say you look at the next 2 years. What is Pepsi going to do to increase their presence in the U.S. Hispanic market specifically?
Yeah, we have had a lot of success on influencing and providing thought leadership on our Pepsi brand when it comes to Hispanic consumer, and really recognizing that Hispanics aren't a monolith. Like you said this before, we come from different countries of origin, which means our foods are different, our words are different, our sounds, like everything's nuanced. It's beautiful, it's vibrant, but it's nuanced. And so what we've started to do is say, hey, gone is the day when, hey, if I do, one media campaign that's in Spanish, and I mean, it's got all the relevant insights, but assume that, hey, that one national campaign is okay for everywhere. That's a false assumption, because, someone that might live in LA, Angelino, that's from Mexican descent, might have a different perspective and experience or traditions than, my family that's, Ecuadorian in Fort Lauderdale. So that monolith has to be broken, because you have to recognize the level of personalization and customization that you need in order to be more relevant. So we've started to do that. We've started to lean more into Dia de los Muertos, for example, for Mexico, but then for a brand like Mansol, we'll lean more into flavor messaging, or maybe like, broader family occasions. For Pepsi, with this new campaign we launched this year, Better with Pepsi, it's called Mejor con Pepsi in Spanish, but we heroed a Dominican Afro-Latino family for some of the executions, and then a, more Mexican family for other executions, because we need to start getting more personalized. Like, that's it. And that's how you also get closer to the community. So that's probably one of the biggest things that we've done.
I love that. I love that idea of just personalizing your messaging, your creative, at Adsmovil, we focus on that. We pride ourselves on really understanding the different cultural nuances. Our footprint is in LATAM. So we have a whole sales force, in Argentina, in Mexico, in Colombia, so they really understand those cultural differences. So what would be, so you mentioned already some examples. You mentioned with Mansa, you mentioned with, you did mention something important with Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean. So it just goes to show you how even deeper we go. It's, you have Hispanics that do resonate with more of a white audience, and you have a Hispanic that does resonate with more of a Black culture. Yeah. So it just goes so much deeper and deeper. So I'm trying to come up with, like, what's the best way to approach on a grand scale? Like how can we, like, at what point is it too much? Like, if you segment that deep, at what point do you say, okay, this is getting way too specific? Like, I'm just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think the good news is that digital platforms help us localize efficiently.
Mhm.
And so I think inherently we think that localization means, oh my God, it's going to cost me more money and I have to do this
Right.
20 different ways instead of 2. But the reality is that there's so many media tools now and technology that can help us do this in efficient ways. So, you know, I don't, and then it's a matter of just how much money you have to invest. So you just prioritize, you know, perhaps by the size of the audiences that you're able to impact. And then also, you know, some of our marketing tends to be focused in certain geographies as well. So it's just a business priority, right? So how then are you measuring the business impact you're going to have? Because to your point, you can't spread the peanut butter so thin that it's like means nothing to anyone.
Right.
But you need to just strategically figure out like, hey, what are the top markets maybe based on the business or based on what current brands are looking like, where the growth can be had, you know, affinities for the brands that you're talking about, you know, to then be able to be successful because it'll scale up. Like that's the thing. Like today, sometimes we talk about Hispanic marketing or BIPOC. I heard that term before. I had to learn what it was like a few months ago myself. But you know, the ROIs are lower. The ROIs are lower. Therefore, we're not going to put much there. If you don't help get that to scale, if you don't help minority-owned businesses get to scale, then we're not changing the racial systemic inequity that exists. We have to do it. We have to lean in. And it is an investment, but the idea is that it scales. And when it scales, it's good for everyone. So I think that's the other mindset shift that people need to have.
Right. It's not an overnight approach. It's not a one time. I have a lot of clients who say, hey, I want to, I reach out to them. Hey, do you guys do Hispanic advertising? Oh, we'll do a test. Well, and then I think to myself, well, that 1 month test is not going to really provide you with the insights needed, and with significant ROI. You know, it takes time, but not too much time. You know, there's a process. It takes a certain period of time to see and develop and learn. You know, on all ends, from marketing to sales. Um, you know, but that is where we need to be today, and it can't be more evident. SB, thank you so much. I think we are going to start taking questions from the audience for a Q&A.
Sure.
All right, let's see. Okay, this one is directed. Oh, okay. From Jean Bryan, SB. All conversation and marketing are designed on overcorrecting the attention and ad spends towards Black marketing, Black consumers, and many of the trade platforms. Is the Hispanic marketing, Hispanic consumer being excluded from today's marketing conversations?
No, I don't think so. I mean, not at our company for sure. I could tell you that, and I think I've seen other competitors as well, even more recently, also talk about it. So I don't think so. But to your point, you know, elevating the need of the cohorts is critical. So, you know, and actually internally right now, we're just thinking about like, hey, we had a thought on, you know, do we package together what we're doing in general, but then you lose the customization and the personalization of what you're doing for each group. So, but I don't feel that that is happening for at least my company I can speak to. But the more companies that do it, the more there's conversation about it. And I'll bet you for sure, Jean, with Hispanic Heritage Month being really right around the corner, you'll probably see a lot more marketers or brands taking advantage of the awareness of that moment in time to say, hey, here's what we're doing. That's my opinion anyway.
This is an interesting one. I keep on hearing the term Latinx. And Mario Flores, what is Pepsi's position on the term Latinx?
Yeah.
Do you use it in your marketing outreach?
Yeah, I don't, but our agency does, Alma in particular. We actually studied this because we would hear from different people internally and externally having an opinion, right? And so I think high level, the thought is that, hey, the older cohorts feel a bit confused, they don't understand it, or they feel a bit honestly turned off by it because it insults them somehow. But then, the younger generations, of course, are like, no, 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 that makes sense because the X, then it could be male or female. It's an interesting question. I think we are at this point internally, like my team is the Hispanic business unit. We haven't discussed changing it to the Latinx business unit. But I think it's like anything, right? Like over time, things evolve, what you call things evolve. I was talking to my daughter yesterday about Vines. Remember, you used to do 6-second Vines. And I'm like, what the hell happened to Vines? She's like, oh, that was gone a long time ago, but it's TikTok. I mean, really, except it's longer than 6 seconds. I mean, right. But so like anything, terminology changes and, but yeah, so we hear the all the feedback on the Latinx term, but I don't currently use it on a regular basis.
Yeah, we don't use it ourselves here at Adsmovil. I mean, I myself don't resonate with it. I am first generation Hispanic, and I guess that's the differences with generations.
Yes.
Mike Hernandez. Hi, Mike. Thanks for tuning in. Similar to Mel's point, a lot of marketers, when they hear Hispanic audience, automatically think if they're doing it in Spanish, they're doing it right. What's the best approach to getting all Hispanics, especially the younger end of the consumer spectrum, who can be acculturated and or English dominant?
Yeah. So I'll talk from a media perspective. We basically have 2 buckets of spend / audiences that we create. One is a Spanish language in particular. So obviously that primarily then goes to, in language endemic platforms, right? Univision, Telemundo, etc. Then we also have another bucket that we call crossover spend, which then looks at advertising that runs in English language, but has high affinity with our Hispanic target. Those definitely tend to be English. I will tell you, as a marketer, it gets a little dicey because many times I feel we need to spend more in Spanish language than we do in crossover, because when I spend more in Spanish language, my creative is 100% fueled by Hispanic insights. When it's crossover, it tends to be more general market creative, which doesn't mean it doesn't resonate, but it is, not as nuanced or culturally driven by my insights. So it gets a little dicey when we have these conversations around how much media are we going to spend in either one of those buckets. Because obviously I'm pushing for more in Spanish language endemic.
Right. And it definitely depends on the segment you're trying to reach for the specific Pepsi brand.
Yeah.
What we like to do at Adsmovil, we always recommend running A/B testing. English versus Spanish, or maybe even a mix of bilingual in there, just to see what is working for that specific campaign. And then we'll optimize towards the best performing language.
Yeah.
Language is still very important.
Yeah, there needs to be a balance for sure. And I mean, I know we're getting to know your platform, Mel, and the balance needs to be there. But what I try to manage is that people don't assume that, well, it's all in crossover, so we're okay. We're reaching Hispanics in English. That's not acceptable. And that's, I think, the point I'm trying to make. It has to be a balance, meaningful balance, that then allows us to meaningfully deliver creative that's as culturally relevant because it came and looks like it would be for the Hispanic cohort.
Okay, I have a question here. SB, is there an intent to include Brazilian PepsiCo products in US too? Or is this multicultural approach in the US?
Yeah, no, we definitely have it on our radar for sure. And that's an interesting one too, because I think old school definitions would be like, well, Hispanic, they just speak Spanish. So obviously they didn't speak Spanish, are they Hispanic? But yeah, there's definitely that we've had conversation about it. And also it goes to this intersectionality conversation we had before, like, right? So whether it's Afro Latino, for example, you know, my parents, you know, were South American, but you know, I have someone on my team whose dad is Ecuadorian, the mom is Puerto Rican. Like the intersectionality it works across the whole group, the whole cohort. So that's inclusive of Brazilian too. But there's definitely learning that we would need to do there.
Absolutely. You know, again, Hispanics are so multifaceted. The culture, I mean, the tribes, it just keeps on going deeper and deeper.
It sure does.
So I think that's it for us. I believe we are switching over to the next panel. Ooh, and the next panel is going to be about the census.
Oh, excellent.
So
I look forward to that.
Perfect. Seamless flow right there. I might have another question that popped up here, but again, SB, thank you so much for your time. I loved our conversation earlier this week and today. You know, I really respect you and thank you just so much for the opportunity to jump on and really talk this sometimes uncomfortable conversation.
Anytime, Mal. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, SB. Hope to see you soon in person. Hopefully.
Likewise. Thank you.
Know, crazy times.
Yeah. Anyone has any questions or whatever, feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. Just ping me.
Great. Thanks, SB. Mel. Appreciate it. Thanks. And that coffee cup was just humongous. My gosh, I couldn't swim in there.
I'm gonna need more coffee.